Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is Beyond the Mega Shipper, Finding Untapped Demand with breadd.ai's Shan Wu. How's it going, Shan?
I'm doing great. How are you, Joe?
Doing great. So, Shan, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Yeah, Shan here, my company breadd.ai, where we help brokers self-freight in any market, including today's market. And I'm calling today from Montreal, Canada.
Yep. So your solution is all about freight brokers, and they've been under a little bit of strain these days. And we talked for a long time. We talked for way too long about it before we hit the record button. But what problem are you solving for freight brokers? And I know it works with other people. So if there's other people listening, you can use it. But Shan's really chasing after the freight brokers because he knows they're in distress. So what problem are you solving for them?
Yeah. Wow. First of all, there's so many problems they're having, right? But I think the best way to keep it short is if you're a freight broker today, you wake up, you actually struggle to find shippers that still have demand. It's not even about doing sales right. These folks have a lot of great skills. They know how to talk to a shipper and get them to do business with. But it's just about you can't get them on the phone anymore. They don't have needs anymore. Everybody's got a truck already, right? And when you do get to talk to them, it's a 3 months, 6 month sales cycle to even have opportunity. So those are some of the things we are targeting and helping folks solve.
Yeah, and I think the biggest companies, so there's 25,000 freight brokers. There used to be 31,000, I think, at the peak. I think we're seeing a larger percentage of freight overall move to brokers. And I think that's a testament to the freight brokerage's embrace of customer success and technology. I thought I was wrong. I thought we see shippers are going to all move away from freight brokerage. It'll become smaller. And the reason I believe that, I thought the technology would allow us to do that. But what we saw from the freight brokerage market, the freight brokers themselves, is they said, we will invest in transportation management systems. And that's just the beginning. That's the foundation of what they invested in. And I think the biggest companies have really focused a lot on the technology, but also the customer success. Also finding ways to be more efficient, building more relationships with the carriers. There's all sorts of tools for that. They have a big advantage, and we've seen a larger percentage move to the top 1,000 freight brokers. So I think the top 1,000, the top 500, the top 100 will say, yeah, we could use something like what Shan's doing. But I think the real opportunity, am I wrong to say, the 24,000 that aren't in the first top 1,000 are who you're usually going to be working with?
Yes, on our platform, and luckily so far we have over 100 sales reps from small and big firms using this tool. But majority of our users and those who I love serving are the smaller dogs, right? The underdogs. These are your folks who left a big firm, be like, I can make my own business and make it work, right? But they are sort of fighting not just a war on the rate, but underlying that is they're fighting a war of capital investment, right? Because so much of it to do business well, to have capacity to serve rate and to offer a lower rate comes from having a lot of investment behind to drive the operational efficiency. So those are folks I love to help with and have a lot of learnings from.
Yep. I love it. I think it's really been a challenging time. I'll tell you, I don't think so we've been calling it a freight recession. I don't even know if that's the proper way to say it anymore. Maybe it's just the new normal. So we saw a peak during COVID, then the cost of the shipments dropped, but also the margins dropped, I think but not everywhere. The guys at the top are still seeing fat margins. And I mentioned to you before we hit the record button that I talked to Spencer Tenney from Tenney and Associates. And he said recently on my podcast that the bigger guys, and they're acquiring companies that are still relatively good size, have specialized expertise, and they have built a moat around their business. So they're still seeing decent margins. And I think the challenge is, how does the rest of the market compete? How do you compete with the big guys who have developed just some great niches for themselves.
I think about that a lot because to me, that's my answer to how folks can still win and still self-rate in today's market. How? By standing out and finding untapped demand. And to me, let's break it down a little bit. When you say specialized expertise and specializing in things, what are we really specializing? Really, there are, I think, three dimensions where we can specialize. It's either equipment type, knowing really well how to work a flatbed and the thousands of types of different trailer within flatbed, right? Or reefer and knowing how temperature control cold chain works. That's very different than just having a truck and moving something, right? But guess what? That's not something that exclusively a large broker can develop expertise in. So that's one thing, equipment type. Second thing is the industry and commodity you move, right? I've seen a lot of folks on our platform, even though they've had expertise in things, they just don't recognize it and they don't capitalize on it, right? So they've moved roofing shingles for the top 10 shippers in that category for the past 3-4 years, right? But they never thought, you know what? I actually already developed expertise in this and I should be banking on it and doubling down and finding others, right? Because I think, so overall, there's like this, I think it's a mindset shift, right? This mindset shift from anything goes, I also need to make more calls to anybody, to taking a step to think about what expertise do I already have? Because that's the segment that you can actually win better than others.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think I talked to some people, this was years ago, that were doing some work for them, digital marketing work. And I remember they said, oh, we do a ton of hazmat shipments. And I said, oh, so you guys are hazmat experts. And they're like, yeah. And what they're hesitant to call themselves experts is they were told by a shipper, this is what I need, go get it. And so they never went beyond, Shan told me to go get this kind of truck and I got that kind of truck. Now, what you could do is say, hey, we're going to attend industries that have hazmat shipments and we're going to get to be experts. We're going to have white papers on hazmat. And so when somebody says, hey, I want to move this, you say, oh, we're flat out experts in this. And this applies everywhere. If you're going to say we'd move a lot of food, then become food safety experts. There's the Food Safety Modernization Act. Become the flat out expert in that. Don't be waiting for somebody to say, hey, you need to comply. And I think this is a mindset shift that you mentioned. Don't be just a freight broker. Say, I work in the supply chain. I work in the food supply chain. And I am an what I'm doing right now is freight brokerage, but I'm a flat out expert. By the way, I can say this as a guy who I used to work in the CAD systems. The CAD work, a lot of it went away. I moved to India. There used to be, there'd be hundreds of CAD guys for every kind of design engineer or senior design engineer. Just the technology, the work still gets done. It's just the technology eliminated most of the jobs.
And Joe, one point you mentioned here, I just want to touch on is the bar to actually establish expertise is extremely low.
Yeah, because no one's doing it.
No one's doing it. And I'll go as fast to say, you don't even have to write a white paper or write content or do that, because I was talking to a shipper recently, because if our tool is helping brokers connect to shippers, I want to understand the psychology of a shipper too. And what a shipper told me is, and this is not even like a top mega brand. This is somebody at mid-market, right? Got maybe 100 mil in revenue and maybe 10 mil freight to move. He's telling me, I get 20 emails every single week, right? And 5 calls a day. But here's the thing. All these folks, they take the time to call me, send me email, and they've done no work.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
No, totally.
They're wasting their shot. They got me on the phone and they say, hey, Joe, I've got a truck in your area. You got something for me?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, if you just, I think it's good news, bad news, right? The bad news is the bar is super low, but the good news is if you just take one step ahead of everybody, you are ahead of everybody, because you can just say, hey, Joe, I've been looking up. We've been moving, you're a food manufacturer and we've been moving food, right, across Costco, Walmart. We know about their OTIF and all that schedule and scorecards.
On time and in full.
Right. There you go. So I just want to say, building expertise can just be as simple as saying their stuff and being concrete.
And I will also say it's a lot easier to reach out and talk to people when you specialize. So when they say, oh, with these unique problems because we move food, and you go, oh, we get it. We work with Costco and Target. When we work with these companies, we understand those challenges. I suspect you're having a problem with this and this. And they go, yeah, okay, this guy gets it. Yeah, so there is opportunity for that. So we'll get into more about that in a minute. But first, tell us a little bit about you, Shan. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you started breadd.ai, and why did you start breadd.ai?
Yeah, I'm in Canada right now, and that's where I spent my childhood. In my first job out of college is actually a cold caller. Matter of fact, a telephone raiser. So I would love to say my job description is to sell nothing and ask folks, hey, you want to give me $200? I'll give you back nothing. So
What were you selling?
I was selling donation for the university. That was my part-time job. For the summer, I couldn't find a job. So they're like, hey, you can call alumni, right? Guilt trip them. They didn't say guilt trip, but basically be like, remember the good old times? Now it's your time to. Do you ever get those calls?
Oh yeah, they should know better because I'm never giving to my universities. I know what a wasteful mess they are.
And that was the experience I had, which is I've made 1,000 dials working part-time that summer. I actually barely made what a university paid me. But that experience really taught me about the real life of a day of somebody who cold calls, right?
It's boot
Because
camp, man.
it's boot camp. It's not even no all the time. It's just beep, beep, beep. 90% of the time, if you get connected, you are lucky, right? That's where I started. And after that in my career, I was lucky to be selling a lot of other stuff. I've been a sales rep all my life. I sold consulting, I sold banking services, payment rails within startups. And that's when I stumbled into the sort of the freight and logistics world where I realized a lot of these freight brokers, they are just also cold calling all day. We started breadd, first of all, to try to help folks automate operations. So we spent our first year doing that. And we got some customers using, and they're paying us thousands of dollars automating ops. But overall, they're telling us, it's great you can, automate ops for me. Call me back when you can help me sell as well. So I think that's where we pivoted into. And today we've been helping folks just sell freight in any market, including today's market.
Yep. And so the name is breadd, breadd.ai. Why bread?
A couple of things. Number one, who doesn't love bread? So that's a hard question. But number two, it's really about what we do, right? We want to help people get that bread, make some bread. And for sales, that's the one thing that matters, right? And finally, part of, and we can get more into it as well, but part of where we stand out is when I was a sales rep, I love selling, but I hate prospecting. I hate waking up, getting ready to go, but then spending that 2-3 hours digging and finding out who should I call, let me find their number, and then doing all the research, right? But if I don't do that, I become one of those people I spoke about earlier who call and say, I got a truck. So breadd is our way to say, we automated that for you so that every day when you wake up, there's a list sitting right in your inbox of 10, 20 shippers that are qualified in your niche, in your specialization with numbers so you can just wake up and call like breakfast. So that's why breadd.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'll tell you a quick story, my experience. You mentioned the difference between selling and prospecting. I went to spin selling. So I was the general manager, COO of a little logistics company. And I went to spin selling. And by the way, they have it everywhere, but it was not going to be available for a few months in Michigan. So I drove to Chicago, took the class. I think it was 3 days. And on the third day, I was talking to some guys there and I said, are we going to talk about how spin is all about asking the right questions, right? But that was once you were in the room, once you had the opportunity. And I said, that's the easy part for us. We get in the room with somebody. There's I think we had a 50% close rate. We're really excited if we got in the room because we knew there was a good chance we could win the business. And I asked the guy, who are we selling to? Are we ever? And he goes, oh, that's a prospecting thing. We don't do that here. And I was like, he goes, we do have, I think they had a case study or a white paper or something on it, and they gave it to us. And I was thinking, this is the hard part. This is the hard part is get me in the room. And so prospecting can be really difficult. And for a long time, it was very much make cold calls, but now everyone I talk to, I think even the research suggests people aren't answering the phone to the same extent they do. And I think most shippers will say, I prefer you reach out via email or another.
Here's info at.
And I think even that will wear them out because we're all getting their emails and we're all sending them the same email. You have to figure out a way to stand out. And I know that's one of the challenges freight brokers have, especially at the bottom, is what makes you different and better? What specialized expertise do you have that I need? And saying I got you a truck is not the specialized expertise.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, one thing that's going to make email less and less effective is the proliferation of these AI spams. I think you've got it before. I've got it in my inbox. And just that the more people receive these spams, the less attention they'll give to any new ones coming up. So you have to stand out.
I love YouTube, so I'm on YouTube all the time. By the way, check out us on YouTube. We got video clips every day. And when I go on YouTube, I know YouTube is trying to eliminate what I call the dead internet, which is just the people who basically took Wikipedia information and said, make a video of this.
Wow. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I've heard of those. I didn't notice. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I've seen a lot of recently. I watched too much World War II stuff, I think. I started seeing it pop up, and it's got these AI created pictures of World War II. I was like, they're compelling because they're in color, and you go, oh, this is great. It's got the emotion on their face. No, most of the pictures from World War II are grainy. No, not these guys. But anyway, getting back to it, YouTube is trying to put a stop to the dead internet. And we're going to have the same issue with emails. And so I think we all have to find a way to stand out and connect with the right people. I know that's what breadd.ai is all about.
Yes. Absolutely. I think it's people realize, and I think selfishly, it's one of my vision or hope for this tool, right? Definitely, I want to make people some money, right? Help them make some bread using bread. But ultimately, I do believe we can help this world have less spam. Because I think when people send spam or these harassment emails, they don't intend to. Nobody woke up and be like, let me harass some people and annoy them. Ain't nobody do that. But they do it because
And it's the same with cold calling, the same way. A lot of times it's an unwanted call. But so let's just say somebody's listening today and they said, hey, Shan, this sounds good. We are one of those freight brokers you're talking about who are looking to grow. We still have sales targets and we're not meeting them necessarily. What is breadd.ai? How does it work? How do I interact with it?
yeah. I think the best way to talk about this, I'll give you a story of one of the brokers who recently onboarded. In short, what bread does for them is it feeds them net new pipeline of new shippers that they never heard of, that are not the mega shippers where it's already taken care of. And it's qualified, researched with phone numbers ready to call that they can just wake up and call. That's overall how it does for them.
Now, is it call or is it email or is it both?
Email is there too, but the main thing we work on is making the numbers work. Because from what I heard from these sales reps, and you can be using different tools, right? I think the most popular ones out there are ZoomInfo, which is very expensive, and some other tools out there. But the thing is, even with ZoomInfo, the biggest complaint I've heard from folks is I've called and it's somebody's mom. I've called and it's their ex-wife asking me, why are you asking for an ex-person, right? And or you called and it's outdated and all that. So we've spent a lot of work to not just give you some random number, but when you wake up, there's a list of 20 qualified shipper in your niche, in your specialty, which we spoke about. It's also a number that we qualify to say, is it an active number? Does it go to a voicemail machine or is it valid and in service?
Yeah, I love that. So when we were prepping to talk today, you said, I want to help them I go after the top 1,000 shippers. I want to help them go after the bottom 1,000. I was like, I don't think you mean the guys who do one shipment, but it's basically the focus for a lot of people is the top 20,000 shippers who are, I think, 10 million or more. A lot of the companies we're talking about who are not in the top 1,000 freight brokers, some of them are going to get some of those big accounts, but it's a little harder. And by the way, who wants to compete in the very contested freight? So if I say, "Oh, I got a number and I finally got a meeting with Procter and Gamble," I suspect everybody else that's in there in Cincinnati, there's the TQL's backyard, and there's a thousand guys making the phone calls to get to Procter and Gamble. Now, is there somebody who's a little smaller, a little less known that I might be able to connect with? I like the idea. We're a little smaller. And by the way, I think smaller companies are a little more open to working with smaller freight brokerages. I can imagine if you and I were in a Fortune 500 company, we might say, I don't want to work with mom and pop freight brokers. Let's find somebody. If we're going to work with freight brokers at all, we're going to work with big guys that we know who can meet all of our requirements easily. Smaller freight brokers might say, I want to know the owner of the company I'm working with.
Absolutely. And I think that's where I see people still have success today. They have success not because they're trying to fight to the top and serve the Fortune 500 company, but it's about how do you discover? It's a discovery issue. 500th largest company in consumer goods.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where you have maybe an opportunity. Say, hey, I found a company, maybe they're beyond the startup phase, maybe they're in the startup phase, but I got to know them and they like me. We're a good fit. Yeah, they want to work with a smaller broker because they're smaller. Yeah. That, by the way, as we talk about freight brokerage being a very difficult place to work, there's somebody who is killing it right now. And they found a way to be different and better. They built that specialized knowledge and they have customers that a lot of other people would envy and go, and by the way, might not recognize the name. I've joked about this, but it's the truth in our business. You can work for a whole bunch of shippers and make a ton of money, and none of your friends will know the company you're working with.
Yes. And I think that's why I think we invest a lot in trying to index and scrape companies and scrape to the bottom, right? It might not be the very bottom, but it's the equivalent of saying, when I search food manufacturers, as a person, I might browse the first page of Google, find the top 10, second page, top 20. Who's going to go to the 100th page and find those? I call it.
So these are the underserved shippers,
They are
potentially.
underserved. And let me tell you something, right? I think it's all about understanding shipper psychologies too, right? There's about providing expertise, but you also understand shippers are humans too, right? And depending on where they're working at, they have a little bit different shape of demand as well, right? At large companies, it's all about, I have so many options and to pick someone and go with it. But when you're smaller, there's a couple of things happening. Number one, you might actually need more help because you're understaffed. And so at this time, they're really looking for somebody who they can count on and trust.
Yeah, I like it.
There are different ways to stand out, but that's why persistence still works. I've seen it works in a lot of different places, but it's not continuous harassment. It's about being there and be like, you can count on me. So that's one thing how you stand out. But also for smaller companies, you need to understand when they're having a volume spike and when are they growing from the small to mid-sized company, right? Because that's the window when they're asking themselves, oh crap, we now need to move a lot more truckloads and I'm still the same person and I might need some help. So there's a lot about how to identify them, discover them, right? Without doing the work. I think it's a huge sort of paradox. As a seller, as a sales rep, every minute you're prospecting, you're not selling, you're not making money. But at the same time, if you don't prospect, right, then you're not hitting those people.
So you guys basically doing the prospecting for the customer so they can have more sales calls, and more sales calls, more conversations means more business. Now, so let's just say somebody's listening and say, hey, this sounds good. I'd like to work with Shan and his team. I have a CRM that I'm using. And how does breadd.ai, do you plug into that? How does this work?
Yeah, we get up and running in 3 minutes. And this is not an exaggeration. I'll prove any claim and try this out together. But within 3 minutes, what we'll do is we ask you for a shipper you like working with, because that serves as the baseline of like how we identify your ideal shipper profile. If you give me 3, it's more accurate. We can start with 1. We then break it down and save it to the algorithm about, okay, given that Joe gives me this company, I understand that he likes food and beverage industry, and specifically he started with beverages, and it's not just any beverage. He's been doing great with a carbonated soft drinks, which has a different way to move. He likes moving reefer in these lanes. And then that's it. Starting tomorrow, you wake up to a list and you have 20 net new shippers.
Is that list inside my CRM, or do I get an email? How do I interact with it?
Both. We'll plug into your CRM, so there's no work for your IT to do. But what happens is tomorrow morning when you wake up, 6 a.m., there's an email sitting there saying, these are the 20 shippers that are net new.
Every morning?
Every single morning. Now, we turn weekends off because I think everybody needs a break, but you can generate a list. You don't have to wait for the daily list. You can also just be like, give me another one. But we will check, cross-reference your CRM to make sure any shipper in your inbox that morning is net new. Nobody has owned them before. It's not a current customer. It's not being talked to in the past.
So it's not somebody's working with them, but my company.
It's not somebody. Because at the start, before we had this CRM integration, a lot of folks are like, it's great, give me 20 customers. In fact, they're very precise. They're so precise, they're our current customers. Right? So we build out the CRM integration to duplicate that.
Kara Smith-Brown from Lead Coverage. I always say the best marketers are great salespeople. And she posted something on LinkedIn not so long. But by the way, so Shan always posts great things on LinkedIn. I think you're under Shan W, SHANW. We'll make sure to put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, and the links to you when you go to market team. But anyway, Kara Smith-Brown posted not so long ago. She said, you have a sale that is a fairly easy sale for you in your CRM that you haven't followed up with. And I was like, oh, that's so good. Painful, but good. Because when you think about your CRM, you go, oh, yeah, I bet if I looked in there, I go, oh, yeah, I haven't talked to old Tom in a long time. I need to follow up with him. He wanted to work with us. And anyway, that's not what you guys are necessarily doing. You are helping us with new opportunities.
Yes. And I love that post because that's actually one of the inspiration of why I started this company. Because as a seller, I had a CRM. I had a lot of accounts sitting there, but that's because I'm generating a list and saving it there and not going back at any time. One day I was actually scrolling on TikTok, on Instagram, and then before I know it, you know how things go on YouTube sometimes as well. Before you know it, an hour is gone. And I'm like, wow, how did the time just go away? And that's the moment where it hits me when I realized that's how easy selling and working with CRM has to be. And that's why we like putting in their email every morning so you don't have to go dig and look for that person or save it to the CRM and all that.
Somebody wants to work with you. They say, hey, Shan, what you do for us? You say, I will get you new opportunities with shippers you're not already working with. And I know you are using also some intent data. Talk about that intent data a little bit. First off, what is it?
Yeah, I think intent is such a huge and broad scope, right? But the way I think about it is there are there's different levels to it. There's a lot of companies in the States, but not everybody scot-free. So first of all, who's scot-free? If they got free, they might not work with 3PLs. So who works with external broker carriers? If they work with external providers, they might not be looking right now. Who are the ones who are looking or tend to be looking? Those are the things we prospect and qualify, right? I think a big difference of how we do things here is I don't think the world needs another huge database, right? I've heard a lot of folks on 24-hour tools saying, I find a list of 1,000, 10,000 companies, but so much of my time is qualifying and sifting through and filtering people out that are the noise. What we do, what we call intent, is telling you for every single one of these 10, 20 companies you get in the morning, number one, every single one of them move freight. And specifically, we know, are they manufacturers, distributors, in what industry, what kind of freight? Is a flatbed, dry van, reefer to your specialty, starting right there. But number two, we understand, have we found any evidence of them already working with 3PLs in the past? Because that's powerful. If you already know that somebody worked with 3PLs before, there's a much higher chance you can get your foot in the door. But finally, I think that the tricky part and the powerful part is knowing when might a person be opening up their window and be looking for new providers. And I think it's really one of four things. It's when they had a service failure, when they have a pricing pressure from the top or from supply chain, when they have an organizational change. Somebody got hired, fired, promoted, or they're currently having a job posting for logistics managers and they need help. And you might be that external logistics managers for them. And finally, perhaps, and it's very timely, it's volume spike as we come into Q4.
So you're not just looking for the company name and the contact. You're saying, I'm looking beyond that to see, do they actually work with brokers and 3PLs? And do I have some evidence of that? But also, is there information that would imply they're growing or that they're hiring logistics managers? So that starts to give me, and by the way, I had an old boss and I no longer worked for him, but he still had the company. And I remember I was asking to move his freight and they were growing this division. And I remember he called me one day and he says, my guys tell me we need a logistics manager. And I told him, I already have one. His name's Joe. Call him.
There you go.
And I remember it's like, so that is an opportunity. These guys thought they were going to get a logistics manager. They got a 3PL instead. I love what you're doing because you can spend all day looking for the right people, or you can say, hey, look, I'm going to spend that time instead reaching out to these people. And we all struggle with this. And I think the bigger companies, they have all sorts of money to be at every conference. They have all the money to create case studies and spend on advertising, spend on sponsorships and everything that they need to reach the top shippers. And they also have this, they also are the right fit. And so when you hear from them, you're like, okay, I know they're legit. A lot of us are just smaller. You're like, hey, prove that you're legit, prove that you even belong here. You can get me connected with shippers who potentially are underserved, demand that everybody called Procter and Gamble this morning. How many called, to your point, the 100th largest CPG?
Who still got tens of millions of freight spent every year. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's always a new startup somewhere that says, hey, we're moving freight. And I love what you're doing. So you said the implementation is really quick. So by the way, we should also mention, you said you're in Montreal. You work with US companies, of course.
I work with, in fact, so far 100% US companies. I'm in the States a lot.
Oh, come on, Canada, step up.
I think, and I want to practice what I preach because specialization as well, right? We could do around the world, we could do North America, but so far our coverage is the best in US. And that's where we are focusing on.
So the implementation, if somebody calls and says, hey, Shan, I want to do this, would be helpful. Is it you have a Zoom call with them and implement?
Yeah, it's real simple. In fact, I just did this earlier today. It's basically the same thing. Tell me who are the sales reps that you want to get on the platform, name and email. Give me one company from each sales rep that's their ideal profile so we can anchor it and make sure they specialize, right? And then I'll jump on a call for 10, 15 minutes to set them up and onboard into the platform, and they're all set.
I like it. So this is not going to take a long time. No one has time. So if you say, hey, I'm trying to work on sales, I don't want to work on tech instead. Now, is this service, how do you get paid? How do you make money?
Yeah, it's a monthly subscription. And one thing we do is we do not do annual contracts. Now, my investors might not be happy about that, but I believe that we should earn people's sort of service, right? Or people's payment and revenue. Like if they're using our tool every single month and they are getting good conversation, getting good leads. They're getting on the phone more. They're talking to every other dial instead of one in 10 calls. Then they'll see value and they'll pay us. But it's a monthly subscription.
I got to tell you, Shan, and I know you know this because you've been in sales, the more conversations you have, the better you get at selling. You don't get better by sending a lot of emails and not getting the meetings. You need the meetings so you can improve what you're doing, better understand the market. It comes down to, it's very basic. The more conversations you have, the more sales you have. Obviously, it's got to be the right people, but you're going to help us find those right people. And this might be, to your point, an underserved part of the market. And boy, I got to just tell you, I talked to enough freight brokers lately. It's been a very difficult time. So I think that they need bread and they need breadd.ai. So,
I think that would be great. At least makes it a little bit easier, right? It's already pretty tough.
so this is not any huge investment. So you say, hey, I'm going to give Shan a shot for a month. And if it works out, I'm going to do it the next month. And if it keeps working out, I'm going to pay him and after a while, I got to think after 6 months of success, they're going to go, yeah, even if there was a bad month, I don't care because it's still working.
There you go. And I don't know how long we're going to keep running this, but there's still free trial right now. So we literally got folks call me in when I set up for a trial and they're getting started risk free.
I love it. I love it. So how long is the free trial for?
Yeah. If it's a personal card that for different reps, it's 7 days. If it's a company card and for a larger team, we can do 14 to 21 days.
So they'll get a real sense whether this works or not. So you're not.
Yeah, because I believe show don't tell. I can tell you how great it is, but just check it out. If you wake up every day to a list of shippers that you can call and it works, like it's that simple.
I love it. I love it. So I'm gonna try and summarize what we talked about, Shannon. Then I want to get your final thoughts on the topic. So I'm talking to my friend Shan Wu, and by the way, he goes by Shan W on LinkedIn. By the way, I knew your last name, and I kept typing in Shan Wu, and I kept getting people in China. I was like,
maybe I should just fix it.
It's all right. It's an air of mystery. Today's topic again is beyond the mega shipper, finding untapped demand with breadd.ai's Shan Wu. Not to over talk about it, but freight brokers are really struggling, and not all the freight brokers. The top 1,000 are probably doing pretty darn well. They've got money. They're outsourcing to Colombia and to Philippines. They're using all the latest tech that allows them, but they're established. They're getting opportunities and the margins that they need because they're big and they've been around. But the other 24,000 brokers who are out there, a lot of them are going through a very difficult time of margin compression. By the way, I don't think that's coming back. I've been at 2 conferences lately where people said that margin is the new normal. So figure it out. And they need to figure out who to talk to. And you can make phone calls to the biggest companies out there and maybe never find the right opportunity. And what Shan's saying is, okay, pick your niche. If it's cold chain in the Northeast or hot shots in Texas in the oil fields, good. Tell him that, and he'll find you the shippers who are underserved, who don't get 100 phone calls a month,
Yes.
who don't get accosted by all the freight brokers. These are the ones who are, we call them the wallflowers that somebody needs to ask out.
There you go.
So these are the people who you should be, especially if they're one of the smaller brokers, you have a better opportunity to get that business anyway. And every morning when you come into work, you're going to find a whole bunch of emails that are not from your CRM. These are brand new opportunities. I love what you said, not necessarily on page 1, Google, not on page 2, not on page 3. These are the manufacturers who are on page 100 and then also have some evidence that they work with brokers, work with 3PLs. Maybe they have something in Indeed that says they're hiring logistics people. Maybe there's an acquisition that is known and you go, this is the opportunity. This is what I should be working on. Not necessarily trying somehow to sweet talk a huge shipper that doesn't want to work with you. And the implementation is super easy, few minutes, you said, and it's just on a Zoom call. And perhaps the best part is you can try this out for free. And then if you like it, you continue, and it's just low monthly. I love it. Shan, put a big old bow on this one. Final thoughts on the topic.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. Final thought from me is I've got the privilege to see over 100 sales reps on our platform. It's not easy to sell freight today, but some people are still thriving. And I think those who are still winning freight today, they do things differently by picking their niche. They specialize. They are doing that prospecting work without putting in the hours, right? And they're spending those hours to make more calls, get on the phone more, and actually do what they do best, actually connect with people as humans and sort of earn people's trust, right? So I think there are ways to do it. I think our tool is one of it to help for folks who currently are still doing things how they worked 10 years ago. I just want to let folks know there's a new way, and it doesn't hurt to try, and it'll hurt to not try.
I love it. I love it. So again, I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, a link to your website. Any other links you and your go-to-market team give me, I'll put it in the show notes. I love what you're doing. So Shan, what conferences will we see you at?
Yeah, very quickly, I'm going to the TMSA Executive Summit in Chicago. That's October 20th to 21st.
Oh, it'll be beautiful there. Of course, it's beautiful in Montreal this time of year too. TMSA is I'm going to CSCMP next week in Washington, D.C. That's going to be great. That's at the Gaylord. Let's see. I'm also going to the Trimble Conference in New Orleans. Don't want to miss the Trimble Conference. I got an email from them this morning. That's always a great conference. And I always say, we all talk about visibility. The Trimble Conference is where visibility begins. So
there you go.
So
100%.
Yeah, I should say Transportation Marketing and Sales Association. That's the TMSA. Now, I have not gone to this conference lately. I try and get to a new one every year, but TMSA is a super conference. I've always enjoyed when I've gone.
And I love it because it's sales and marketing specialized, right? You got a lot of folks in the room talking about how to make some bucks, and it's just a great room to be in.
And we didn't talk about it, but the sales and marketing, sometimes, we got the sales team, we got the marketing team. There's a blurred lines right now.
It's one thing. It's about revenue generation, and there's nothing else than that.
This could be just called, hey, this is the conversations with new customers or prospective customers department.
There you go. A little bit long, but that's just
we got to tweak that a little bit. Anyway, again, Shan, I'll make sure I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, link to your website, any other links you and your go-to-market team give me, I'll put in the show notes. And thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.